History of Poland during the Jagiellonian dynasty is the period in the history of Poland that spans the late Middle Ages and early modern era. Beginning with the Lithuanian Grand Duke Jogaila, the Jagiellonian dynasty formed the Polish-Lithuanian Union. The partnership brought vast Lithuania-controlled Rus areas into Poland's sphere of influence and proved beneficial for the Poles and Lithuanians, who coexisted and cooperated in one of the largest political entities in Europe for the next 4 centuries. In the Baltic Sea region, Poland's struggle with the Teutonic Knights continued and included the Battle of Grunwald and in 1466 the milestone Peace of Thorn under King Casimir IV Jagiellon. The treaty created the future Duchy of Prussia. In the south, Poland confronted the Ottoman Empire and the Crimean Tatars, and in the east helped Lithuania fight the Grand Duchy of Moscow. Poland's and Lithuania's territorial expansion included the far north region of Livonia. Poland was developing as a feudal state, with predominantly agricultural economy and an increasingly dominant landed nobility component. The Jagiellonian Act adopted by the Polish Sejm in 1505 transferred most of the legislative power from the monarch to the Sejm. This event marked the beginning of the period known as Golden Liberty, when the state was ruled by the free and equal Polish nobility. Protestant Reformation movements made deep inroads into the Polish Christianity, which resulted in unique at the time in Europe policies of religious tolerance. The European Renaissance currents evoked in late Jagiellonian Poland an immense cultural flowering. Late Middle Ages, Jagiellonian monarchy. In 1385 the Union of Crevor was signed between Queen Jadwiga of Poland and Jogaila, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, the last pagan state in Europe. The act arranged for Jogaila's baptism and for the couple's marriage and constituted the beginning of the Polish-Lithuanian Union. The union strengthened both nations in the shared opposition to the Teutonic Knights and the growing threat of the Grand Duchy of Moscow. Vast expanses of Rus lands, including the Dnieper River basin and extending south to the Black Sea, were at the time under Lithuanian control. Lithuania fought the invading Mongols and had taken advantage of the power vacuum in the south and east resulting from the Mongol destruction of Kievan Rus. The population of the Grand Duchy's enlarged territory was accordingly heavily Ruthenian and Eastern Orthodox. The territorial expansion caused Lithuania's confrontation with the Grand Duchy of Moscow, which found itself emerging from the Tatar rule and expanding. Uniquely in Europe, the Union connected 2 states geographically located on the opposite sides of the great civilizational divide between the Western Latin and the Eastern Byzantine worlds. The intention of the Union was to create a common state under Władysław Jagiellon, but the Polish ruling oligarchy's idea of incorporation of Lithuania into Poland turned out to be unrealistic. There would be territorial disputes and warfare between Poland and Lithuania. Lithuanian factions, the Lithuanians at times even found it expedient to conspire with the Teutonic Knights against the Poles. Geographic consequences of the dynastic union and the preferences of the Jagiellonian kings accelerated the process of reorientation of Polish territorial priorities to the east. Between 1386 and 1572 Poland and Lithuania, joined until 1569 by personal union, were ruled by a succession of constitutional monarchs of the Jagiellonian dynasty. The political influence of the Jagiellonian kings was diminishing during this period, which was accompanied by the ever-increasing role in central government and national affairs of landed nobility. The royal dynasty, however, had a stabilizing lasting effect on Poland's politics. The Jagiellonian era is often regarded as a period of maximum political power, great prosperity, and in its later stage, the golden age of Polish culture, social and economic developments. The feudal rent system prevalent in the 13th and 14th centuries, under which each estate had well-defined rights and obligations, degenerated around the 15th century, as the nobility tightened the control of the production, trade and other economic activities. This created many directly owned agricultural enterprises known as folwarks, which limited the rights of cities and pushed most of the peasants into serfdom. Such practices were increasingly sanctioned by the law. For example, the Piotrko privilege of 1496, granted by King Jan Olbracht, banned rural land purchases by townspeople and severely limited the ability of peasant farmers to leave the villages. Polish towns, lacking national representation protecting the class interests, preserved some degree of self-government, and the trades were able to organize and form guilds. The nobility soon excused themselves from the principal duty, mandatory military service in case of war. The division of the nobility into two main layers was institutionalized in the Jagiellonian Constitution of 1505, which required the king to consult the General Sejm, that is the Senate, as well as the lower chamber of deputies, the Sejm proper, before enacting any changes. The masses of ordinary szlachta tried to compete against the uppermost rank of the class, the magnates, for the duration of Poland's independent existence. Poland and Lithuania in personal union under Jagiellon I, king of the new dynasty, was the Grand Duke of Lithuania Jogaila, or Vladislav II Jagiellon as the King of Poland. He was elected a King of Poland in 1386, after becoming a Catholic Christian and marrying Jadwiga of Anjou, daughter of Louis I, who was Queen of Poland in her own right. Latin Rite Christianization of Lithuania followed. Jogaila's rivalry in Lithuania with his cousin Vytautas, opposed to Lithuania's domination by Poland, was settled in 1392 and in 1401 in the Union of Vilnius and Radom. Vytautas became the Grand Duke of Lithuania for life under Jogaila's nominal supremacy. The agreement made possible close cooperation between the two nations, necessarily to succeed in the upcoming struggle with the Teutonic Order. The Union of Horodlo specified the relationship further and granted privileges to the Roman Catholic portion of Lithuanian nobility. Struggle with the Teutonic Knights. The Great War of 1409 to 1411, precipitated by the Lithuanian uprising in the order-controlled Silesia, included the Battle of Grunwald, where the Polish and Lithuanian Rus armies completely defeated the Teutonic Knights. The offensive that followed lost its impact with the ineffective siege of Malbork. The failure to take the fortress and eliminate the Teutonic state had for Poland dire historic consequences in the 18th, 19th and 20th centuries. The Peace of Thorn had given Poland and Lithuania rather modest territorial adjustments, including Silesia. Afterwards there were negotiations and peace deals that didn't hold, more military campaigns and arbitrations. One attempted, unresolved arbitration took place at the Council of Constance. There in 1415, Paulus Vladimiri, rector of the Krakow Academy, presented his treatise on the power of the Pope and the Emperor in respect to infidels, in which he advocated tolerance, criticized the violent conversion methods of the Teutonic Knights, and postulated that pagans have the right to peaceful coexistence with Christians and political independence. This stage of the Polish-Lithuanian conflict with the Teutonic Order ended with the Treaty of Melno in 1422. Another war was concluded in the Peace of Brzesko-Kujawski in 1435. Hussite movement. Polish-Hungarian Union. During the Hussite Wars, Jagiello, Vytautas and Sigismund Korybut were involved in political and military maneuvering concerning the Czech crown, offered by the Hussites first to Jagiello in 1420. Zbigniew Olesnicki became known as the leading opponent of a union with the Hussite Czech state. The Jagiellonian dynasty was not entitled to automatic hereditary succession, as each new king had to be approved by nobility consensus. Vladislav Jagiello had two sons late in life from his last wife, Sophia of Halshany. In 1430 the nobility agreed to the succession of the future Vladislav III, only after the king gave in and guaranteed the satisfaction of the new demands. In 1434 the old monarch died and his minor son Vladislav was crowned. The royal council led by Bishop Olesnicki undertook the regency duties. In 1438 the Czech anti-Habsburg opposition, mainly Hussite factions, offered the Czech crown to Jagiello's younger son Casimir. The idea, accepted in Poland over Olesnicki's objections, resulted in two unsuccessful Polish military expeditions to Bohemia. After Vytautas' death in 1430, Lithuania became embroiled in internal wars and conflicts with Poland. Casimir, sent as a boy by King Vladislav on a mission there in 1440, was surprisingly proclaimed by the Lithuanians as a Grand Duke of Lithuania, and he stayed in Lithuania. Olesnicki gained the upper hand again and pursued his long-term objective of Poland's union with Hungary. At that time the Ottoman Empire embarked on a new round of European conquests and threatened Hungary, which needed the powerful Polish-Lithuanian ally. In 1440 Vladislav III assumed the Hungarian throne. Influenced by Julian Caesarini, the young king led the Hungarian army against the Ottomans in 1443 and again in 1444. Like Caesarini, Vladislav III was killed at the Battle of Varna. Beginning near the end of Jagiello's life, Poland was practically governed by a magnate oligarchy led by Olesnicki. The rule of the dignitaries was actively opposed by various Szlachta groups. Their leader Spitek of Milestone was killed during an armed confrontation in 1439, which allowed Olesnicki to purge Poland of the remaining Hussite sympathizers and pursue his other objectives without significant opposition. Casimir the Fourth Jagiellon. In 1445 Casimir, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, was asked to assume the Polish throne vacated by the death of his brother Vladislav. Casimir was a tough negotiator and did not accept the Polish nobility's conditions for his election. He finally arrived in Poland and was crowned in 1447 on his terms. Becoming a king of Poland, Casimir also freed himself from the control the Lithuanian oligarchy had imposed on him. In the Vilnius Privilege of 1447, he declared the Lithuanian nobility having equal rights with Polish Szlachta. In time Kazimierz Jagiellonczyk was able to remove from power Cardinal Olesnicki and his group, basing his own power on the younger middle nobility camp instead. A conflict with the Pope and the local church hierarchy over the right to fill vacant bishop positions Casimir also resolved in his favor. War with the Teutonic Order and its resolution in 1454. The Prussian Confederation, an alliance of Prussian cities and nobility opposed to the increasingly oppressive rule of the Teutonic Knights, asked King Casimir to take over Prussia and stirred up an armed uprising against the Knights. Casimir declared a war on the order and a formal incorporation of Prussia into the Polish crown. Those events led to the 13 Years' War. The weakness of Pospolite Rusini prevented a takeover of all of Prussia, but in the Second Peace of Thorn the Knights had to surrender the western half of the territory to the Polish crown, and to accept Polish-Lithuanian suzerainty over the remainder. Poland regained Pomerania and with it the all-important access to the Baltic Sea, as well as Warmia. In addition to land warfare, naval battles had taken place, where ships provided by the city of Danzig successfully fought Danish and Teutonic fleets. Other 15th-century Polish territorial gains, or rather reivindications, included the Duchy of Oswiecim and Duchy of Zator on Silesia's border with Lesser Poland, and there was notable progress regarding the incorporation of the Pist Masovian duchies into the crown. Turkish and Tatar wars. The influence of the Jagiellonian dynasty in Central Europe had been on the rise. In 1471 Casimir's son Vladislav became King of Bohemia, and in 1490 also of Hungary. The southern and eastern outskirts of Poland and Lithuania became threatened by Turkish invasions beginning in the late 15th century. Moldavia's involvement with Poland goes back to 1387, when Petru I, Hospodar of Moldavia, seeking protection against the Hungarians, paid Jagiello homage in Lviv, which gave Poland access to the Black Sea ports. In 1485 King Casimir undertook an expedition into Moldavia after its seaports were overtaken by the Ottoman Turks. The Turkish-controlled Crimean Tatars raided the eastern territories in 1482 and 1487, until they were confronted by King Jan Olbracht, Casimir's son and successor. Poland was attacked in 1487 to 1491 by remnants of the Golden Horde, who had invaded into Poland as far as Lublin before being beaten at Zaslav. King John Albert in 1497 made an attempt to resolve the Turkish problem militarily, but his efforts were unsuccessful as he was unable to secure effective participation in the war by his brothers, King Ladislaus II of Bohemia and Hungary, and Alexander, the Grand Duke of Lithuania, and because of the resistance on the part of Stephen the Great, the ruler of Moldavia. More Ottoman Empire instigated destructive Tatar raids took place in 1498, 1499 and 1500. John Albert's diplomatic peace efforts that followed were finalized after the king's death in 1503, resulting in a territorial compromise and an unstable truce. Crimean Khanate invasions in Poland and Lithuania also continued during the reign of King Alexander in 1502 and 1506. In 1506 the Tatars were defeated at the Battle of Klesk by Michael Glinski. Moscow's threat to Lithuania. Sigismund I Lithuania was increasingly threatened by the growing power of the Grand Duchy of Moscow. Through the campaigns of 1471, 1492 and 1500 Moscow took over much of Lithuania's eastern possessions. The Grand Duke Alexander was elected King of Poland in 1501, after the death of John Albert. In 1506 he was succeeded by Sigismund I the Old in both Poland and Lithuania, as the political realities were drawing the two states closer together. Prior to that, Sigismund had been a Duke of Silesia by the authority of his brother Ladislaus II of Bohemia, but like other Jagiellon rulers before him, he had not pursued the Polish crown's claim to Silesia. Culture in the late Middle Ages. The culture of the 15th century Poland was mostly medieval. Under favorable social and economic conditions, the crafts and industries in existence already in the preceding centuries became more highly developed, and the products were much more widespread. Paper production was one of the new industries, and printing developed during the last quarter of the century. In 1473 Caspar Strabo Alba produced in Krakow the first Latin print, in 1475 in Wrocław Kasparelian printed for the first time in Polish, and after 1490 from Schweipold Fuel's shop in Krakow came the world's oldest prints in Cyrillic, namely Old Church Slavonic language religious texts. Luxury items were in high demand among the increasingly prosperous nobility, and to a lesser degree among the wealthy town merchants. Brick and stone residential buildings became common, but only in cities. The mature Gothic style was represented not only in architecture, but also prominently in sacral wooden sculpture. The altar of Vistos in St. Mary's Church in Krakow is one of the most magnificent in Europe artworks of its kind. The Krakow University, which stopped functioning after the death of Casimir the Great, was renewed and rejuvenated around 1400. Augmented by a theology department. The academy was supported and protected by Queen Jadwiga and the Jagiellonian dynasty members, which is reflected in its present name. Europe's oldest department of mathematics and astronomy was established in 1405. Among the university's prominent scholars were Stanislaw Skarbymius, Paulus Vladimiri and Albert of Brudzowo, Copernicus's teacher. The precursors of Polish humanism, John of Ludzisko and Gregory of Sanic, were professors at the university. Gregory's court was the site of an early literary society at Lwow, after he had become the archbishop there. Scholarly thought elsewhere was represented by Jan Ostrorog, a political publicist and reformist, and Jan Długosz, a historian, whose Annals is the largest in Europe history work of his time and a fundamental source for history of medieval Poland. There were also active in Poland distinguished and influential foreign humanists. Filippo Buonaccorsi, a poet and diplomat, who arrived from Italy in 1468 and stayed in Poland until his death in 1496, established in Krakow another literary society, known as Kalamach. He wrote the lives of Gregory of Sanic, Zbigniew Olesnicki, and very likely that of Jan Długosz. He tutored and mentored the sons of Casimir IV and postulated unrestrained royal power. Konrad Celtes, a German humanist, organized in Krakow the first in this part of Europe humanist literary and scholarly association Sodalitas Literarum Vistulana.